Tummy time, is it a milestone? Yes, it is. Okay, and here's why. Many countries, governments, including our own, promote that tummy time is more of a pastime or an exercise or plaything that you might do with your children. That's not how it works. Tummy time is really essential, and I want to explain why. When you're working with your baby or when your baby is first born, okay, I know you're not here to learn about gravity, but gravity is a force of nature, and it's not optional. We deal with gravity from the day we're born to the day we die. In fetal development, your baby does not deal with gravity in the same way. Why? Because it doesn't expand and it doesn't eliminate. So in other words, it doesn't breathe, inhale, exhale. So we don't have that expansion. We don't have that elimination of, like, say, breath. If that happens, it could be deadly to the child. They don't eat, swallow, or eliminate waste. Again, if that happens, it could be deadly, right? So when the baby is first born, that first breath is one of the telltale signs if your baby's going to be okay or not, because I promote that, and I have years of experience on this, and for all of you that say that they have first breath issue, I can guarantee you, if your child cannot organize opposing gravity in breath when they're first born or within the first 3 months, let's say they have a really bad sickness, I can guarantee you that for your child to walk, they're going to need some form of therapeutic intervention. Whether you call it early intervention or you call it that extra help, whatever, but there's going to be somebody involved helping you to create that. Why? Because if your baby's brain, body has not learned to oppose gravity in breath, then they're not going to oppose it in walking without some kind of needing to help with those kind of things. And there's lots of things that oppose gravity, from rolling over to turning a page. It doesn't have to be a hard activity, needing muscle activity, but this is where you have the first big breakdown in cognitive neural mapping that's necessary for your child's development. Excuse me. So, tummy time is a milestone because, first of all, your baby has to learn to breathe in all directions. So on their tummy time is not about head lift. If you think that baby learns to do push-ups and lift their heads, you're already in developmental deviations, if not developmental delays, right? Those activities are not for that. The first act of tummy time is breath. The body needs to know it can learn to breathe in all directions in opposition to gravity. So the spine has to breathe. The ribs have to breathe, right? This is all essential. The tush, it needs to breathe. All of these things happen. Your baby is breathing as a whole unit. It's not a diaphragm breath. It's a breath to oppose gravity, right? So a lot of babies, because of, let's say, environmental hospitalizations, car seats, being held too much, swaddling, are swaddled or held and kept in such a way that the only breath that maybe they're getting is just a low respiratory rate up through the upper chest. That's why, well, I did it because of COVID, because I thought all these babies were going to be sick with COVID. The breathing course will always be free because, again, so many children didn't organize respiratory functions. And again, this establishes all their movements in their body, okay? It is a huge milestone. It might be viewed as an activity because a baby can't get into tummy time on their own, but they can't get into lying on their own. We have to place the baby down. The difference between tummy time, let's say lying down in absolute horizon, that's where this comes into play, where I can be holding my baby and I can put my baby down without a startle or going into those kind of things. And by the way, too, if this kind of conversation does not set up with your baby and their movements, you're also going to have reflex integration issues, right? And so to go after the reflexes and not go after the core movements that establish all the basis for your baby's development, which is in lying down, tummy time, I'll tell you right now, you're going to have, again, therapeutic interventions within your child's life or difficulties to create a milestone. All milestones are necessary. Another thing that tummy time does is vision. Okay, you think your child's just there lying there, and okay, what does that have to do with vision, Michelle? Well, if you look at the human eye is round, but it has a heavier part called the cornea. And it also has muscles attached off of that. Almost looks like a slingshot, right? That we used to play with as kids, right? That were going there. And so the eye, when you're lying down, right? Now, typically, again, with gravity, you would have a pendulum. And so the cornea being heavy, you should start to see these kind of movements, right? But what you actually are starting to see is the baby's eye is starting to go into these kind of movements, right? And that is establishing what I talk about all the time, the crossing of midline. It's done very immaturely because they are learning it from going into sleeping and lifting their head. A tummy time, by the way, tummy time needs to be done with supervision. I understand that. But at the same time, too, it is essential for your child's development. And also, too, where tummy time, it is dangerous, where it's being overlooked. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. In many religions, no baby is put in tummy time after, let's say, 5 months of age. So because of that, they don't do it all. Or like the government says, don't let them sleep on their tummies. I totally understand that. You don't leave your child in this position and walk away, even to make a cup of coffee. We have to supervise our babies because they're a new life force, right? We have to be there for them. But it is an essential milestone because of the respiratory responses, putting the brain and body into neutral in regards to, there's gravity, there's barometric pressures. I mean, like I go to Florida to work, and let me tell you, because I'm in Phoenix where it's very dry here, right? Or where Heena's at, maybe we don't have the humidity, and all of a sudden you're going into these places that have that barometric force. It's like it's hard to breathe because your lungs are pushing against this humidity. And again, there's pressures. Or here, I can go to altitude at 7,000 to 9,000 feet, let's say in Flagstaff. A lot of people get altitude sickness. There's many different functions that you see and go, oh yeah, I went up to Flagstaff to have a burger and I could hardly breathe. I had to come back down off the mountain. You didn't do activities, is your body's regulatory responses for something like of altitude pressure. It made the system too difficult. It's not just breathing, it's your circulatory system, it's your balance, it's your, all of those kind of things come into play. And when the body gets threatened with breath, it will stop the activity. And that's where the body is saying, I can't breathe well, you're going to go. But a baby can't say that when they're in a harness, when they're in this, or if they have laryngomalacia, if there's structural issues. But I can't stress enough, and this is why we have the tummy time course, we have the breathing course, that these kind of activities, as your baby is learning not to push up off their hands, if you see a baby pushing up and their tush is coming up, right, this is not tummy time, right? They're saying, I can't do it. They have a pubic bone strike, it starts to happen. The pubic bone strike is not official until 4.5 months, but the pelvis goes down and therefore the head rises. And you should see again, the head going into a manner of more like an X. You should not see windshield wiper, right? Or you should not see again where your child's pushing up and doing all of these things. These are activities that your child's doing to say that they're in trouble, right? And that's where you come into play, being proactive with your child's care and start getting involved now to help them with their movements. Because if they haven't figured it out on something as simple as breath and in tummy time, everything is going to be, it's like a house of cards, right? And this is what we're trying to prevent. We're not here to tell you what's wrong. We're here to tell you what you can do about it. And going into the tummy time course, but again, if the respiratory your child was in some kind of respiratory distress at the beginning of their lives, or would say within the first 3 months, the breathing course, it's a free course. The newborn movement assessment, assess your baby's availability, but then start going through, you want to go into the options package, the Fast Start program, or just through course by course. Tummy time is just essential. It's a milestone. Your baby needs to do it. And if you look back on if you're at the 6-month level saying, my child's still not rolling over, and you've got to be shaking your head right now like, oh, that happened. I'm not trying to say that happened too bad. I'm saying you can go back and change. You can change someone's foundation to change their future. right? I'm not saying you can go back and say, okay, that birth trauma didn't happen. But what I'm trying to say is you have to think about, did my child have the best foundation needed to go to the next level? And if your answer is no, then you tear down and you go back and you establish a better rolling over, a better grabbing their feet. No milestone is meant to be missed, but this is why your child is not rolling over if these kind of conversations weren't a part of their life to begin with. So that's what I'm saying. We need to do something about it. I wish someone had done it for me, for my child, and I'm trying to do it for yours. I'm trying to save you tons of work. I'm trying to save frustration and heartache by doing so, because it's time is of the essence. It's your child's not here to buy time. We can buy time, but children just can't. And so again, Tommy Time is actually a very big milestone, and we need to change the standards to give parents optimal delivery and development for their child, instead of that wait and see approach. Waiting to see for your child to fail is not an option. I'm here to do everything I can so your child has the best future possible. It doesn't matter what country you're in, where you're from. That's what's the blessing of the internet. We are here to help everyone. Thanks. Good morning, Hina.